Okay, so now we will discuss on defining the research problem. So by the end of our presentation or session, the learner must be able to identify important factors to be considered in selecting a research topic, state the research problem underlying the selected research topic, formulate measurable general and specific objectives, and justify the significance of the research topic and objectives selected. And so I will selecting a research topic. And any research activity starts with a problem in the mind of the researcher. And how the researcher finally decides on which problem to work on is dependent on many factors. So I have here a listing of some of these factors commonly considered, together with the questions which the researcher need to answer as he or she considers each of these factors. Number one, we have the interest, okay, or background and qualification of the researcher. So if you're a nurse or a student nurse, you might be interested in exploring the 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 factors or the nature or the phenomena of a student nurse um, student nurse in a particular school. Letter B, relevance. Okay? How large or widespread is I wait lang. What happened? How large or widespread is the problem? Like for example, ngayon, ang pinaka-relevant na issues about COVID. Yeah? Who is affected? How severe is the problem? Is the topic or the problem covered by the current scientific or intellectual interests of the academic or health community? Siyempre kasi pandemic naman yun. Is it in line with the priority areas of the funding agency to whom my proposal will be submitted? Like for example, in the Philippines, the most common health issues or health topics for research funded by the DOH or the PCHRD, Philippine Council for Health Research and Development. Okay? Yung mga list of mga prioritized problems nasa NORA yan or sa RURA. NORA is National, ano yung basta health research agenda yan. Yung R sa RURA is regional. Another factor is to consider avoidance of duplication. Has it been investigated before? Are there still existing gaps in knowledge in or major questions which still deserve further investigation? So, kung na-explore na siya, most probably wag natin yan gawin. But of course, meron din namang ano yan, meron din mga topics na na-explore na siya in one area or one setting, pero you want to to investigate if this problem or concern is applicable in other area. Like for example, if the study was conducted in the hospital, would it be applicable in the community setting? So that is not a duplication kasi nag-iba yung setting. Another factor is you have the feasibility. Can the study be done given the existing human and financial resources? So kung meron kang financial constraint, that could be a big factor na hindi mo yung matatapos. Can data from the required number of samples be collected within the frame of the study? given the inclusion and the exclusion criteria, okay? Or are materials and equipment needed for the conduct of the study available? So usually, we do not conduct a study na mahirapan tayo mahirapan tayo or wala tayong available na mga equipment or materials needed. And then we have the applicability of possible results and recommendation. What is the chance of the recommendation of the study being applied? Or the urgency of the data needed. How urgently are data needed for making a decision? And like for ngayon, yung mga COVID, in any setting, in any area, in any scenario, kung merong urgent need to investigate o kailangan magawa to kaagad para magkaroon ng solusyon. Then we have the ethical acceptability. How acceptable is the research to those who will study? Can informed consent be obtained from the subjects? Will the condition of the subjects be taken into account? So you have to take into consideration that you will protect the participants, okay, or the respondents. Okay? The benefit of the study outweighs, okay, the risk, okay, or harm. Okay, so we have not identified the research problem. The research problem is an area of concern within the selected topic where there is a gap in knowledge. Provides the motivating factor for the research objective to be answered in the research. It is the jump off point, the basis, and the guide of the researcher in formulating the specific research objectives. It can also provide the basis for the significance of the research project or the study. The research problem should be part of the background information provided with the researcher when writing up the introduction section of the research proposal. So therefore, your research problem is in the introduction part or in the background. And there can be some point of confusion here because there are a number of academic institutions as well as research books which consider the statement of the research problem as the same as that as the research objective. Again, this is a different approach to defining research problems, representing another school of thought. And what is important is for the budding researcher to be aware that there are different practices and different terminologies used by the researchers in actual practice and for them to be able to adapt whichever environment or institution they happen to be. And then after identifying the research problem, you will now formulate the research objectives. It is the research objective is the most important part of the research process because it is the basis of everything that needs to be done. It summarizes what what is or what are to be achieved with a study and reflect the questions the study wishes to answer. There are two ways of stating research objectives. Now, one is a statement. Okay? Like, for example, to determine if there is a relationship between smoking and lung cancer. Okay? Or you can present the objective in a question. Is there a relationship between between smoking and lung cancer? Okay? Then we have to identify the difference between general and specific objectives. There are two kinds of research objectives, general and specific objectives. General objectives provide an overall description of the general intention of the research activity. It reflects the overall purpose of the project. It states what is expected to be achieved with the study in general terms. So, for example, um, you are dealing with a study on exposure, occupational stress among staff in the regional health office. Your objective is to determine the extent and nature to which the staff of the regional health office are exposed to occupational stress. On the other hand, specific objectives, uh, they are the, they spell out the specific details, okay, which comprise the general objectives. They are statements regarding the specific questions expected to be answered in the study. They break up the general objectives into smaller, logically connected parts. They systematically address the various aspects of the problem as defined in the problem statement. Okay? So say for example, um, yung ating general objective kanina is to determine the extent and nature to which the staff of the regional health office, sino ba yan? Regional health office are exposed to occupational stress. So with this general subject, we can have two specific objectives. One, to determine the prevalence of occupational stress among the staff of the regional health office. And number two, to determine whether the following factors are associated with the occupational stress among the staff of the regional office, like the sex of the employee, length of employment, um, type of position, like nasa management level, nasa technical level, or nasa admin level. Okay, so reasons for specifying the research objectives. There are several reasons why specific objectives need to be formulated in a research study. These include it helps to define the focus of the study, it identifies the specific variables to be measured, and avoid the collection of data which are not essential to the problem identified, to organize the study into clearly defined parts and phases, and of course, it guides the researcher in the development of the research methodology and to orient the collection, analysis, and interpretation of the data. The choice of the variable to be collected, the study design, the way the data will be processed, as well as the statistical techniques to be applied in data analysis will all depend on the research objectives. Kaya gano'n, kailangan specific yung research objectives. So what are the characteristics of research objectives? Okay, because research objectives play a very vital role in the research process, the researcher must ensure that they are phrased properly. We have the following desirable characteristics. They are phrased clearly and specifically. They are focused on what the study is attempting to solve and cover the different parts of the problem in a logical way. They are clearly phrased in measurable, operational, and observable terms, specifying exactly what the researcher wishes to measure and collect. They are realistic, okay, considering the constraints within local conditions and should be feasible. They use action verbs which are specific enough to be measured. Okay? For example, the words determine, compare, compute, and describe are frequently used in research objectives because the corresponding actions needed to achieve are clear. In contrast, the deliverables when using the words to appreciate, understand, explore, or dramatize are not clear, hence they are not used when specifying the research objectives. Okay. Next step is to provide the significance of the study. Justifying the significance of the research involves convincing others that the research problem to be investigated is important. It is about explaining what is not known about the problem, hence the need for the proposed research. It requires providing documentation that the proposed research is actually a problem through the use of related literature as well as information from available reports, statistics, and documents. Okay, so justifying the significance of the research answers the following questions. What is the contribution of your research to existing knowledge in this area? How will the research results improve the current practice or the existing policies? Is the problem to be studied current or timely? Does it exist now? How widespread is the problem in terms of number of areas or people affected? Does the problem affect important pathologies of special interest? Does the problem relate to ongoing programs, project activities, or initiatives? Or does the problem relate to broader social, economic, or health issues? Okay? Or who else are concerned about the problem? So, iyon yung um, mga supporting question that will help in composition of the significance of the research. Okay, so that's it for the research problem.